God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah 12, verse 56. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. On 12:56. We thus established Joseph on earth, ruling as he wished. We shower our mercy upon whomever we will, and we never fail to recompense the righteous. Additionally, the reward in the hereafter is even better for those who believe and lead a righteous life. Joseph's brothers came. When they entered, he recognized them, while they did not recognize him. After he provided them with their provisions, he said, "Next time bring with you your half-brother. Do you not see that I give full measure and treat you generously?" If you fail to bring him to me, you will get no share from me. You will not even come close. They said, "We will negotiate with his father about him. We will surely do this." He then instructed his assistants, "Put their goods back in their bags. When they find them upon their return to their family, they may come back sooner." So we see in these verses, the surah title is Joseph, and this is about the story of Joseph and his brothers. And God shows to us in this verse 56 says, "We thus established Joseph on earth, ruling as he wished. We shower our mercy upon whomever we will. We never fail to recompense the righteous." So we see from the story, as we read in the previous Quran study, on how Joseph was a steadfast submitter who was always reverent to God, and how God took care of him and helped him always, and eventually God gave him a good position, and He made him the treasurer as a reward for his steadfastness, and to show that God's promise is the truth. And God says that's how God made him an independent person who had a wonderful, perfect perfect life, and God gave him plenty. And God says, additionally, this is just the worldly benefits that God gives to the believers in this world, but on top of that, God says, additionally, the reward in the hereafter is even better for those who believe. So imagine like Joseph's reward in the hereafter, God says it's going to be much, much better, for all the believers. The rewards in the hereafter are even better for the righteous. So it's not like if you are a righteous person, you have to suffer in this world and be deprived of stuff and just continue to struggle always. When you pass your admissions test, God opens the doors, and you can think of these trials that Joseph went through almost as admissions tests. Like for example, he could have given up while he was in jail on God, but he continued to steadfastly persevere until God brought him out, and that required a lot of patience, many years, and many of us are not even half as patient as Joseph was. So a great example for all of us to learn patience and to be steadfast. They have this saying that people say that they used to discourage people and encourage them to use illegal ways to get their provisions by saying that like if you're a nice person, you're not going to be successful in life. Like they say, nice guys finish last, etc. But we know that Joseph was a very nice guy. Nice in the sense that he was a worshiper of God alone. He never hurt anybody. He was a righteous man. And eventually, he maintained his steadfastness. He followed God's laws and worshiped God alone under all circumstances. And eventually, he became a winner in this world. And also, God says in the hereafter, he will be very, in a very high position. So, and not only him, but God says all the believers. So then, going back to the story of Joseph, his brothers came when they entered, he recognized them, while they did not recognize him. And so, um, he told them that, you should bring your brother with you. He recognized them. It was obviously God's will. I mean, imagine so many years have passed and they've grown up. He could have easily forgotten what they look like, but after all these years, he still remembered and recognized all of them. So that's definitely, divine act, of God's support, that, he was destined to recognize them. And then he told them to bring the brother with you. Now all of this was being planned by God, and it was God's plan to unite Joseph with his brother that he really loved, who was the other brother that they were complaining about was getting all the attention from their father. So this tells us that they were both righteous. And so he said that you should bring him with you. If you don't bring him with you, you will not get any share. But then on top of that, he knew that they were kind of materialistic in a way, like they wanted more provision. So if he gave them their goods back, that they would come sooner to trade again. So like they had this incentive there to come back again, and so he put the goods back in, and sure enough, they came back pretty quickly, and they got so then after that, when they returned to their father, verse 63, I'm going to start reading. It says, when they returned to their father, they said, our father, we can no longer get any provisions unless you send our brother with us. We will take good care of him. He said, shall I trust you with him as I trusted you with his brother before that? God is the best protector, and of all the merciful ones, he is the most merciful. When they opened their bags, they found their goods returned to them. They said, our father, what more can we ask for? Here are our goods returned to us. We can thus provide for our family, protect our brother, and receive one more camel load. This is certainly a profitable deal. He said, I will not send him with you unless you give me a solemn pledge before God that you will bring him back, unless you're utterly overwhelmed. When they gave him their solemn pledge, he said, God is witnessing everything we say. And he said, O my sons, do not enter from one door, enter through separate doors. However, I cannot save you from anything that is predetermined by God. To God belongs all judgments. I trust in him, and in him all the trusters shall put their trust. MashaAllah, so very interesting verses. So when they asked for, his other brother now, imagine Jacob's, reaction and his feelings, how he's, lost his son, and he kind of had a feeling that they would be responsible with him again. So he's telling them, should I trust you like I trusted you with Joseph? And then, they definitely convinced him, and he, made them make a promise that they will take good care of him, like actually take good care of him. And then, he did say that, don't enter from one door, enter through separate doors. And we see here that, this was a plan that was divinely set up. Like, imagine if they all entered through one door, then, several things as we read on further would be more difficult to carry out. So it says, Jacob senses Joseph. When they went to Joseph, they entered in accordance with their father's instructions. Although this could not change anything decreed by God, Jacob had a private reason for asking them to do this. For he possessed certain knowledge that we taught him, but most people do not know. Right? And so, clearly, it indicates that he had a private reason for asking them to enter through separate doors, but it doesn't specifically mention what the reason was. And so, you could probably just think about like what the reason would be, but obviously it had to do with certain information that, as the verse says, that God had clearly given him. So this was, almost as a clear instruction he had, based on some plan that, they should enter through separate doors, and this knowledge was given to him, and this wisdom, so that Joseph's plan could be carried out. I mean, that was God's plan, right? And obviously, it's not like Jacob was part of the plan. He had no clue about it, right? But he just knew that he should instruct them to enter through separate doors, and obviously God's plan would happen. He didn't know like what would happen, but he knew that something was gonna go wrong, because, like he says, I cannot protect you from anything already predetermined by God. So he knows that something's happening, and it's almost like he had a premonition of some sort, or inspiration from God, that he was gonna reunite this way, or that that event is about to happen. And so, nevertheless, he trusted in his feelings with God, and he allowed it to go through. And then also in this verse at the very end, it says, "To God belongs all judgments. I trust in Him, and in Him shall all the trusters put their trust." Right. So it's a great reminder for all of us that Jacob put his trust in God, and he's telling them to put their trust in God. Like, imagine sending one of your sons with your brothers, and then brothers doing a horrific act, and then several years later they want to take the second one. So now they're like, okay, now they're probably going to execute the part 2 of their plan and get rid of the other son as well, because they want to get their full attention, but he trusted in God, and he put his trust in God, and he let his son go, despite what had happened in the past. Back in Egypt, when they entered Joseph's place, he brought his brother close to him and said, "I'm your brother. Do not be saddened by their actions." Joseph keeps his brother. When he provided them with their provisions, he placed a drinking cup in his brother's bag. Then an announcer announced, "The owners of this caravan are thieves." They said as they came towards them, "What did you lose?" They said, "We lost the king's cup. Anyone who returns it will receive an extra camel load. I personally guarantee this." They said, "By God, you know full well that we did not come here to commit evil, nor are we thieves." They said, "What is the punishment for the thief if you are liars?" They said, "The punishment, if it is found in his bag, is that the thief belongs to you. We thus punish the guilty." So, back in Egypt, when they went through separate doors, right? And we can see that at least one of the benefits of them entering through separate doors is that the other brother was the first one to be with Joseph, that he brought him close to him and told him that he's his brother, right? So this was before any of the other brothers had a chance to come close to him. He brought his brother close to him and told him that he was his brother. And so he prepared him for what was about to happen. And God says, when we provided them with their provisions, he placed a drinking cup in the brother's bag. Now, this would be very strange for a lot of people, and difficult for a lot of people to understand, because it may seem dishonest or deceptive, but the thing is, it says this was God's, this was in accordance with God's will, right? And I guess we will read further into it, what God says about this particular incident. But, the cup was placed in the brother's container by the people that worked for Joseph, um, as a way to carry out this plan. And the brothers, when they were told, I mean, they were scared, and they said, "We're not thieves," and and then they said, "What is the punishment of thieves if you are liars?" And they said, "The punishment for the thief is that the thief belongs to you, so you can keep the thief, like I believe, like as a slave or something. Um, he belongs to you permanently, like you own this person." Um, Probably that's the law at the time, right? Um, which maybe be a somewhat of a profitable deal for these people, because I mean, someone just commits theft and you end up just getting them as a slave, So, um, anyways, so this is how this started, and it says he then started by inspecting their containers before getting to his brother's container. So Joseph started inspecting the containers, and imagine if Joseph went straight to that brother and got the container out of his bag. Like, people would be scared. Like, how did you know that the container was going to be in his brother's bag, or how did you know that he stole it? It's like he genuinely pretended that he didn't know where the cup was, and he went to search the other brothers first, and then came to his brother, right? And then we see that what it says. He then started by inspecting their containers before getting to his brother's containers, and he extracted it out of his brother's container. We thus perfected the scheme for Joseph. He could not have kept his brother if he applied the king's law, but that was the will of God. We exalt whomever we choose to higher ranks. Above every knowledgeable one, there is one who is even more knowledgeable. So the king's law was different, right? So he said to them, "What is the punishment for the thief if you are the liars?" So he asked them what the punishment would be. And they said, "The punishment is, if found in his bag, is that the thief belongs to you. This is how we punish." So this was coming from Joseph's brothers, and they said that according to their law, or according to according to them, if someone commits theft, you keep the person. and but God says here that in the verse that if they applied the king's law, he could not have kept his brother. But this is the scheme that God perfected for him, through which he could keep his brother. Because just like people have immigration laws right now, he could not have kept his brother with him. He would have to let him go back. But this is how God allowed him to stay in Egypt, right? I mean, because they were coming from Palestine, and so this was happening in Egypt. Yeah, which, if you think about it, I mean, it's a pretty intense journey for these people, given that they didn't have aircrafts and stuff. So they said, if he stole, verse 77, they said, if he stole, so did a brother of his in the past. Joseph concealed his feelings in himself and did not give them any clue. He said to himself, "You're really bad. God is fully aware of your accusations." They said, "O you noble one, he has a father who is elderly. Would you take one of us in his place? We see that you're a kind man." He said, "God forbid that we should take other than the one in whose possession we found our goods. Otherwise we would be unjust." So imagine, it says, if he stole, so did a brother of his in the past. Like, they completely made this up, right? Because Joseph never stole anything. And they just, conveniently threw him under the bus and say, so he probably did it. And so did his brother in the past. Imagine they're saying it in front of his face. SubhanAllah. I mean, it's amazing that this actually happened, and he didn't just like, throw them in the prison right there. Imagine a person, in his position at the time, and how vulnerable the brothers were, and how poor they were, and them saying stuff like that, given the fact that he had they had thrown him in the well to get rid of him, and now they're saying this in front of his face, like totally fabricated. I mean, Joseph was so patient that he kept his cool, and he said to himself, like, these, that you're really bad, but he didn't say anything to them, because obviously at that wasn't the right time to say anything, because he also wanted to get his father out and everything else. And so he was wise enough to keep his feelings to himself, and not give away his identity at the time. And they said, "Oh, you noble one, he has a father who's elderly. Would you take one of us in his place? You're a kind man." And so they knew he was a kind man, and or maybe they were just like trying to sugarcoat and just maybe flatter him and butter him so that they could get out of it. But the thing is that he just wanted them to go back. So it says, when they despaired of changing his mind, they conferred together. Their eldest said, "Do you realize that your father has taken a solemn pledge from you before God? In the past you lost Joseph. I am not leaving this place until my father gives me permission, or until God judges for me. He is the best judge. Go back to your father and tell him, back in Palestine, 'Our father, your son has committed a theft. We know for sure because this is what we have witnessed. This was an unexpected occurrence. You may ask the community where we were and the caravan that came back with us. We are telling the truth.'" So God willing, I'll stop here for a second, and just these couple of verses, like first they made up this lie that his brother stole, right? And then and so did Joseph. And then now here they're saying that your son has committed a theft. Like they didn't see it, but they told him that this is what they witnessed. Even though like what happened, someone else could have placed the container, which is what actually happened. And they basically easily believed this, and they didn't tell his father, like, hey, maybe it like looks like someone schemed or something. They straight up said, no, he committed theft. And you can tell, like, they're still jealous of him, and they're still jealous of the other brother, because they said this, they still hated him, given that he was not there with us, with them. But he said that if he did, so did a brother of his in the past. Like, it shows that they're not really righteous, and that shows to us also that this is why they were in the position that they were, while God blessed Joseph and gave him a good position and righteousness and wisdom and knowledge. So I mean, this is what God says that his reward is for the believers. And we can see why his brothers were not, didn't turn out the same way. Verse 83. He said, "Indeed, you have conspired to carry out a certain scheme. Quiet patience is my only recourse. May God bring them all back to me. He is the omniscient, most wise." He then turned away from them, saying, "I am grieving over Joseph." His eyes turned white from grieving so much. He was truly sad. They said, "By God, you will keep on grieving over Joseph until you become ill or until you die." He said, "I simply complained to him about my dilemma and grief, for I know from God what you do not know. O my sons, go fetch Joseph and his brother, and never despair of God's grace. None despair of God's grace except the disbelieving people." SubhanAllah. So when they said this to their father. Now, again, the father knew his son very well. He knew he was a righteous person, just like Joseph was a righteous man, and just like Joseph would never steal, his brother did not steal either, and his father knew that they were making it up. Like, it can't be, or it can't be true, given the fact that his brother would never do such a thing, right? Like, if you really know someone's righteous and someone else comes to you and say, oh, you know what, this person just committed a theft or adultery or something like that, of course you're not going to believe them, right? And he knew that something was off at that time, but it seems like he also was still grieving over Joseph. Like, he was crying, he was missing him, and he was grieving so much that his eyes turned white from grieving. And he said, I'm simply complaining to God about my dilemma, right? So complaining to God, like, in the sense, he was not complaining, he was imploring God, like, he was also grieving. And so this is why, as a consequence, he almost, became blind from doing all this grieving for him, But I mean, you can understand, at least from like a father's perspective, that he truly loved his two sons, and these were the two sons he loved. And first he lost the first one, and then now the second one's gone, But he knew that God had a plan to reunite them all together, Like, for example, when he told his father about the dream, I think that alone maybe was an indication to Jacob as well that something like this would happen eventually. So he was anticipating it, given the number of entities that were in the dream. Equates to the same number of brothers, and the sun and the moon. So I guess he had assurances from God that eventually he would get back together. And he says, do not despair from God. None despairs from God's grace except the disbelieving people. So imagine him losing one son, and then at the same time, this event that seems like a tragedy at the time, right? Happening at the same time, and some other person, or the average person out there would probably object at that time and say, you know what, I don't, or let's say, they just start complaining, like, God, why did this happen? First I lost Joseph, and now I lost my other son too. And they may start to question God and stuff, and become an objector, right? But we can see that Jacob's utterances were very righteous, and how he responded to the situation. First of all, he did not blow up at the sons too. Like, imagine, someone doing this to one of your sons, and then coming back after he entrusted you with the other son, and coming and telling him that they lost him too. He did not lose his temper, right? He did not, throw some kind of a tantrum or something, at his kids, or he did not murder any of them, as some people might do, like at that time. Imagine, the rage, or the loss, or imagine the mindset, if something like this happens to someone, right? And his utterances were exemplary in this situation. Joseph's utterances, throughout this whole story, and his actions, and Jacob's, also, subhanAllah, I mean, these are great examples for us to learn from, and how to respond to situations, and how not to lose trust and hope. Like, especially here, he says, go fetch Joseph and his brother, and never despair of God's grace. So he's saying, not only he's saying that go fetch the brother, he's saying go fetch Joseph too, because he knows, like, God has informed him somehow of what's happening, right? And so this is obviously God's blessing, because this has nothing to do, for example, with religion. Like, this has nothing to do with them being messengers. This is not inspiring them with religious information, right? I mean, this is God inspiring them about events in their personal lives and their family members, right? That, for example, he'll be united with him and stuff like that. And so And so this type of knowledge that God had given him, and support that God had given him, and the assurances that God had given him. I mean, we have another example also that I'd like to highlight here. As I'm talking about this, it says believers are blessed with God's assurances, right? And this is Surah 12, verse 15 that we read earlier, where when they put him in the well, it says, "Someday you will tell them about this while they have no idea." Right? And so God is letting him know, this has nothing to do with him being a messenger, like, or religious information coming down to him, but something very personal to his life, and God let him know, right? So now the question is this just limited to a messenger, or can God inspire believers in this way? And we can see easily, clearly from the subtitle, it says believers are blessed with God's assurances. It could have said messengers are blessed with God's assurances, right? But that's not the case. And messengers are just human beings like us, and when it comes to their personal lives, especially, they're just human beings like us. And God blessed them with these assurances and help and support. So if we are on the right path, if we lead a righteous life, if we do our part, God can help us and support us. And with these things that that God inspired him with, obviously they were not meaningless, and they were not there to stroke their egos in some way, like they're so pious, but it was there to help them and support them, to strengthen them, basically, right? To make them hopeful about God, to not despair, and to guide them, in their own lives. And this is definitely another one of those lessons that we see here. So God willing, I will end here. If you guys have any comments or questions at this point, please feel free. Thank you.
MashaAllah. Thanks, brother. Good study. Yeah, very good. Very wonderful explanation, and on the verses, and mashallah.
I'm I think I'm seeing some issues with the audio again, but God willing, I'll try to fix it. One second. Okay, now talk. Yeah, yeah. So just the stream has some issues. Yeah, yeah.
Righteous believer, and yeah, I mean, it might have been sad that his son did such a thing, but I mean, it's harder, I guess, to get sick with bad people or evildoers, like in their case, what they had done.
Power on.
You're gonna
Bluetooth pairing. Bluetooth connected.
perfect, perhaps. And we can see in the verses too, how they state that Joseph, Jacob was specifically grieving over over Joseph, you know.
So okay. So you had a question about the brother.
I think Brother Joffre had a question about
Okay.
Jacob's grieving. Also, I want to ask, the messenger of the covenant has preached about God as running everything. Was this concept, idea, belief already known and established also before the messenger, or is this a new way of understanding the whole religion of submission? I can imagine Jacob knowing this, like God is doing everything, so this would give him the patience and strength to deal with these things. Same as with Joseph. Yeah, I mean, if you look at, mashallah, that's a good question. But if you look at like how Abraham, I mean, even Hud, if you the last chapter we read about Hud says, "My Lord is in full control of all matters." He said, "There's a single creature he does not control." I mean, like you know, that that they knew God is running everything just by those statements. God's controlling all the creatures. God is doing everything. All matters are controlled by Him. So yeah, um, I would say so.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna read the comments that Brother Jaffer mentioned. He says, "Can we say that Jacob was also very sad because it was his own children who did this to their brothers? Like not only crying because he missed his son, but the fact that he was a father
who has to deal with the lives of all of his sons. Also, I want to ask, the messenger of the covenant has preached about God is owning everything. Was this concept, idea, belief already known and established also before the messenger? Or is it a new way of understanding the whole religion of submission? I can imagine Jacob knowing this, like God is doing everything, so this would give him the patience and strength to deal with all the things. Same as with Joseph, but did they also preach the exact same words, God is doing everything? Like, do you know of any similar verses from the Bible? Right, so we understand.
Brother Suleman, could you hear me when I was
Sorry, no, I
attempting?
heard, as I was,
Oh,
sorry, I can hear myself. As you were talking, I didn't know you were actually reading his comments, but now
okay.
that I read,
Yeah,
I
brother
see
Joe.
that you're
Yeah,
reading.
yeah. I didn't think you could hear me, but okay, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. So I think I can still hear myself. Very weird. Okay, I think I know why. Oh yeah. Okay, now thank God. Okay, good. Um, all right. So yeah, so I didn't know you were actually talking about it earlier too, but uh, but yeah, I mean, I see that the concept about God is running everything. We know that God is in full control of everything, and He runs everything. And obviously, there are verses, similar verses in the Bible that also say that God is fully controls everything, right? So this is not like a new concept in that sense, But when the messenger talks about it, he says this sheds a whole new light on submission. So he's talking about submission versus objection in that respect. But really, we know that this knowledge is also, the same that we see in the Quran. It's from the Quran, and so from the same as the Old Testament. Like it's not something new that just came out when the Quran was revealed. So naturally, I mean, they trusted in God, right? That's where trust comes. Like you don't panic, you don't object, you complain to God about your situation, you implore Him, you never despair, and that's what they did. And then also, I want to talk about the crying part. Like, I mean, the crying that he said, he said, like, let's see what he says, he says that he's complaining about his dilemma, right? But he says he was grieving over Joseph, you know? So it's not that, oh, all my sons are bad and like I need to cry about it. Like you wouldn't do that, right? I mean, that's clearly just like the most negative kind of emotion you can have. It's like, oh, my life is so miserable. Look at my sons; they're horrible. Like, that would be like a source of retribution. Like your children. But he wasn't like that. Uh, he was a righteous man, so it's not like he's fed up with his life and he's complaining about how miserable his life is. Which is what this would turn out to be if you were just complaining about your kids. Oh my God, like my kids are so horrible. You're crying about it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like you're gonna sympathize on behalf of the victim. And
Mm-hmm.
the victim was Joseph. Mashallah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because he couldn't control what his sons were doing,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and but he knew God is. He trusted in God.
Mm-hmm.
Despite how the situation seems, it's very. I mean, there's really good lessons as you had mentioned, and like we've been reading in the past couple studies. Like there's really good lessons about
Mm-hmm.
patience and persevering and trusting in God, even when things or you could be dealing with something internally. Like
Mm-hmm.
it could be anything. It could
Yeah.
be uh, it could be health. I mean, it could be just something. I mean, it could be all types of different things,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you could even be shaken up too. But God is with you the whole time, and putting trust in
Mm-hmm.
God and submission. Submitting.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm. You could even be shaken up or shaping up.
shaken up.
I mean, I was like, you say shaping up or shaking up? Yeah, but I mean, also, speaking about shaping up, like in this way, like, God also says, like, He refines us, like, the messenger explains, like, how, like, you have like a diamond, that is polished, and these things that these people were put through also, made them strong and made them, have the qualities that they have. Like, for example, Joseph being in the prison, and yeah, before that, I mean, him being with the at the governor's house. So all that was planned in a way for him to learn the things he needed to learn, and the lessons he needed to learn, so that I must kill this wasp.
uh, I've looked it up. I think those are like mud daubers. They're not hornets or anything.
Uh,
They're really really docile. I took a picture and I sent it to GPT
mm,
and it identified it.
mm, oh my
But
God,
if that makes you feel any better.
yeah, the three of them together. Imagine,
Oh
like, kill
wow,
three of them.
that's a lot. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't distract everyone. Okay. Yeah, I guess you don't want to accidentally try to step on them,
Mhm.
Right. All right. Mashallah, I mean, I love this chapter, with all the others too, but I remember when the first time I read the surah, like, I was so moved by it, but I still continue to, learn new things, when I read it. SubhanAllah.
Also, mashallah, that's true. Me too. Also, like verse 86, he said, "I simply complained to God about my dilemma and grief, and for I know from God what you do not know." So we can see like he's imploring God. Is this right? Like it looks like he's
Mhm.
imploring God about his
Yeah.
dilemma, but he's also imploring God about his grief, like the fact that he's grieving. So like if you were
Mhm.
grieving, you're like, "My Lord, please help me not to grieve in this way anymore."
Mhm.
And I mean, is
Mhm.
that what? You know?
Yeah, and also, he could be like just asking him to answer his prayer and to reunite him with
Right.
his son. Like, imagine. Imagine losing that child at such a young age. Imagine, like, when he's in his full youth, like, these women, look at him, they say he's an angel. So imagine when he was a little cute baby, like,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
must be so cute, and then him losing him. inshallah. May God, give us the same kind of patience and same kind of attitude towards things that happen in life.
Inshallah.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the people around us, and we look at their examples, and then we respond in a similar fashion. But we know that from the Quran that these are the role models that God wants us to follow. Like examples that we have in the Quran that this is where the bar really is.
True. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, because this is how we should be. Quiet patience,
Mhm.
only recourse. I mean, you also look at like these. I mean, people so close to him were scheming against him and Joseph and his brother. And I mean, we see this happening on a grand scale and also a smaller scale, around us, the places we live in. So I mean, we trust in God, about
Mhm.
bringing the victory too, and bringing all these
Mhm.
people who idol worshippers. I mean,
Mhm.
that they despise the believers, or they you can
Mhm.
feel how when you talk to, at least from what I've encountered. I mean,
Mhm.
it's profoundly true. I mean, I always believed it's true. When God alone is mentioned, the hearts of
Mhm.
those who disbelieve, they shrink in aversion. And when you talk about God alone and like His greatness and no one equals Him, I mean, the one who's controlling like all the galaxies and everything in them,
Mhm.
and I mean, you can just go on and on. It's like the people
Mhm.
I mean, people I've, at least from Christian upbringings, they're just like, they cringe.
Exactly.
I mean, we have, I mean, like having victory over these people who literally look at you like they despise you, because even though they may not say it, or sometimes but you can sense, there's certain things I
Mhm.
think, like, we can sense just by looking at them, or like having, like seeing their reactions, like a multi. I mean, it's you can assume, not assume, but like you get a pretty good idea of what they think just based on their responses and stuff over time,
Mhm.
and I mean, this is.
Yeah, but it's not that secretive, like you can you can actually read their responses online.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like people are
Yeah,
afraid
that's
to
true.
say it in person to you, but they're
Right.
not afraid to say
Right.
it
Yeah.
behind your.
Exactly. And I think that's it too. They're probably thinking the same thing, but online you can pretty much see what they're thinking in person, because they're all,
Mhm.
idol worshippers,
Mhm.
worshiping a human being. I mean, think about it. Like, I mean, the messengers, the prophets, they ate food just like us. They slept like us. They used the bathroom just like us. They got sick just like us, and God healed them. I mean, we see Abraham's example. When I get sick, you heal me. You feed me, water me. So I mean, like, these people are nothing special. And when you talk to them, or like with this logical, you try from different angles. They're just, I don't know. They're averse to the truth, just like the Quran says.
Mhm.
They hate the truth. There's something, and not to say like, I mean, we still have hope for these people, but I mean, I guess
Mhm.
depending on what we know about them, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we also like Joseph's response to the people in his prison. Like,
Mhm.
you had multiple gods, like these fabricated idols, versus the one, the supreme,
Mhm.
the Most High. Yeah, there's a lot of good examples, like about being patient too, like even and and with these people, whoever they are, among the idol worshippers,
Mhm.
and not losing your temper or anything, of course.
Mhm. SubhanAllah. I mean, it's it's so crazy, like when you think about it, with idol worship, that how these people recognize God, you know, and knowing that they can't see Him, knowing that His powers are awesome, but then how they just get stuck fantasizing about a human being that they can't get over,
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, plus, and then they even, they acknowledge like the human is gone. So it's like, okay, who's taking care of the cat? Your cat, or
Mhm.
digesting its
Mhm.
food and like causing its blood, and circulatory. Like,
Mhm.
who's doing that? Jesus isn't doing that. He's not here.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
what about all the cats? What about all the mice? I mean, like, you could just go
Mhm.
on, and I don't,
Mhm.
like you said, it just doesn't click. Something, I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like the same, I mean, like I'll play one of my songs, and then they really like it. Like the Quran says they believe in God, but they're going to hell. The God is doing everything. Songs like that,
Mhm.
listening to it and really like and
Uh-huh.
stuff. But I mean that's maybe after I don't know,
The
maybe after
smoke.
the smoke or something. Yeah, I'm thinking that's. But but it's
Yeah.
also it's a trial for these people because I mean if they're not prepared, like because they don't believe, I mean
Mhm.
maybe I don't know, they could still be okay. Or I mean who knows? But subhanallah, like it's gonna, because even if they're not telling you to your face, like you said, I mean we can see the stuff like they say
Mhm.
online, in their comments and responses, but and they're
Mhm.
laughing and stuff, but they're probably doing similar and inside.
Mhm.
They're just not gonna say it to you. Like,
Yeah. When is the next Olympics? I think
the next Olympics,
I think they said it's in the U.S., right?
I think I actually heard something about it being in the U.S. I think so. What year is that supposed to be?
Or I think it's actually not 2029, it's 2028 in Los Angeles.
Oh wow. They're gonna do the skiing probably up in those mountains. You think? Like,
I don't know.
'cause I think it snows. It's like
Mhm. Mhm.
Los
Yeah, it
Angeles,
will be.
July 14th to July 30th,
Yeah,
2028.
it'll be this summer, so I don't think there's any skiing.
Oh, the summer Olympics and the
Yeah.
winter Olympics. Yeah,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah, Winter Games are already happened
Mhm.
in February 2020. No, it's happening on February 2026 in Italy. Yes.
Maybe we should go.
Oh yeah, it's close, huh?
Yeah. Italy. I mean, Italy's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that actually really is close. That's a couple months. I didn't
Yeah.
even realize. Yeah. Maybe not.
Mhm. Yeah.
I thought it would be like a year from now or
Mhm.
something. I mean, maybe Los Angeles. One
Mhm.
goes that one
Mm.
or something. Yeah. Your comment about the like the King stuff, and then
Mhm.
that was a good comment. About the
Mhm.
verses, because
Mhm.
it may not seem something like uh, like normal or righteous, but
Mhm.
This is what God willed, and he couldn't have
Mhm.
kept him by the king's law. And God, we thus perfected the scheme for Joseph, So it was God. It was but that was the will of God. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean, he's
exactly.
also saving his brother, right? So he's
Mhm.
going to these lengths to save a life.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
Mhm.
what they did to Joseph, they
Mhm.
probably at some point
Mhm.
would have done to his younger brother
Mhm.
Benjamin.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's also like one way of looking at it is like, he was kind of forced by circumstance, in order to keep his brother, he had to do this.
Right. Yeah, because let's say the king's law, he could have kept him from whatever.
Mhm.
Then
Mhm.
he would have just done that. Right. That's true.
With King's Law, he couldn't keep him.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, I never thought about verse 81 like you explained. I like it, but said, "Our
Mhm.
father, your son has committed a theft. We know for sure because this is what we have witnessed." They didn't even like give him the benefit of the doubt, or
Mhm.
like, or they were almost like rejoiced in the fact that,
Mhm.
like, oh look, his brother, and then like the previous comment,
Mhm.
like, oh, Joseph must have stolen the past, and like they
Mhm.
were, they were probably maybe upset because they knew their father would be upset because they were supposed to protect him, but at the same time,
Mhm.
like they were so
Mhm.
sure, you know,
Mhm.
and they didn't like
Well.
try to defend him. Or like, no, like this
Mhm.
is how it seems, and
Yeah.
maybe maybe there could be some misunderstanding. Like we're just,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, and imagine like they were raised by Jacob, right? Like in a very righteous upbringing, and 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 I mean Joseph was such a, and imagine like they did something so horrible to their own brother, and they should have, like, you would think that they would have some remorse uh
mm
towards him, rather than saying, oh yeah, his brother did this also in the past, like they were ruthless,
right, yeah.
you know.
Like after doing something so heartless, you're not gonna like make
Yeah.
such a terrible comment about somebody,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, also we can see Joseph's response too, like how he persevered,
Mhm.
like what his brother did to him,
Mhm.
and then he was even like, he said, "There's no blame upon you today." Well, but we know, like how he was,
Mhm. Mhm.
his, Jacob. But I think his brothers also realized like they finally like gave up.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess the brother would have realized that maybe they were young and ignorant at the time, and that God willing they will be guided, and maybe give them some time to fix
Reflect.
themselves. Yeah. I mean, this should definitely move them, knowing that how he let them just go after what they did to him, and knowing what they did to him, and he just forgave them. Like that should really, like, how God says, like a bad response and a good response, like loving your enemy. Like also this is similar to that. Like they were not his religious enemies. And so it makes sense that he should just be kind towards them. They were his own brothers after all, and they were young kids. So, but that also shows like how he was able to think clearly, and separate his ego from all of this and do the right thing. And you have you know in contrast you have brothers and sisters who kill each other for or for small things, like material things.
Right. Hmm.
But they almost did the same thing. They wanted to kill him. Imagine.
Yeah, I mean, leave him in the well. I mean, I don't know how,
Mhm.
but like if you throw him or something, like you could break
Mhm.
his neck,
Mhm.
or he could be really
Mhm.
injured at the base.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or just leaving him there. Nobody, he could die
Mhm.
of starvation or something.
Mhm. Yeah. And also, you can see this idea, that how people think that they can become righteous after the age of 40, like with his brothers, like they said, let's kill him, and they said afterwards you can be righteous,
Wow,
until
and then
then.
yeah, different.
And you can see that, I mean, given that, when whatever you're gonna trade with neglecting God, I mean, it's gonna shape your whole life, in the same, like, so the difference between Joseph and his brothers were that he was righteous from the beginning, and his brothers weren't. They were like, oh yeah, let's just do whatever we want, and then later
They're
we
only
can be
righteous
righteous.
later. Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's how like a lot of like idol worshippers think too. They
Mm-hmm.
like they'll just get good with God before their death. I mean, like even I watched a documentary I think a week ago on the King of France, Louis the 14th. He was like very
Mm-hmm.
hated, and then like on his death, he ended up dying of like some horrible gangrene disease. It was pretty
Mm-hmm.
gross, but like historians were talking about him, and it was very detailed. But like he basically it was the same thing. He thought like he started becoming like righteous like on his deathbed. Just like Pharaoh, and he basically was a little Pharaoh. Maybe not as like cruel, but still bad. And then
Mm-hmm.
like he waited until the end, to but um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's scary because like well not scary, but like I've heard from two personal accounts of like people I know that are getting up there. One of them has passed, but it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They disbelieve uh, in God most of their life, and
Mm-hmm.
then like when death approaches, like they have
Oh.
some like yeah, like they start to worry about like, man, what if I was
Mm-hmm.
wrong? Is there a heaven and hell? And then one of
Mm-hmm.
the people died, and then one of them
Mm-hmm.
I heard was like very very fearful, and it's just like, well, how come like it would have been better for you or why like to be like that in the first place, when you're young
Mm-hmm.
and fully able,
Mm-hmm.
instead of waiting like until like like basically when you have maybe a
Mm-hmm.
year or a couple months left to live.
Right.
I mean, it's like a similar concept, waiting. Yeah, some people wait till the age of 40
Mm-hmm.
or something to be righteous.
Right.
Because it probably will happen, 40 comes, and then that person won't be right. Like, even if you recall or you remind them, like, hey, you said this 10 years ago, 9 years ago, they're probably
Mm-hmm.
just gonna like, oh, wait a little longer or something.
Yeah.
Because I've actually heard that from somebody before.
Yeah, I mean, and imagine like if they died on their 40th birthday,
Yeah, I
after
know,
after
really,
their 40th
right?
birthday, so they will
Yeah.
not end up going to heaven because they haven't substantially grown their soul like Pharaoh.
Mhm. Yeah, and you can't, right? You can't just wait, like to
Mm-hmm.
do. I mean, just like,
Mm-hmm.
from exercising and stuff, like, I mean, maybe this is
Mm-hmm.
the best example, but it's, I guess,
Mm-hmm. That's a
one,
good
like,
example. Yeah.
yeah, like you can't grow, and reshape your body and,
Mm-hmm.
get, let's say increase, like skeletal muscle mass and shape
Mm-hmm.
up, in the course
Mm-hmm.
of a month or even 2 months or even
Mm-hmm.
even a year. But like these things
Mm-hmm.
take really long time to grow and develop and mature and
Mm-hmm.
get. And it's not something you can just do in a couple of days, weeks, or months, or even,
Mm-hmm.
so it's the same thing, like, with our, soul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, plus, like risking that, risking your hereafter is, yeah, it's just not.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyone else has any comments or questions?
Oh, Brother
All right.
Joffer? What about Brother
I think he
Joffer?
left. He left.
Oh,
Yeah.
must yeah, you already asked this question.
Yeah. Yeah. He had to sleep. That's why he didn't ask
Yeah.
more questions.
Yeah, that's true. It's getting late there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess if there are no other comments or questions, God willing, we can conclude our study. So thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.